December 19th, 1979, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 9 p.m. Inside the quiet Westdale Mall parking lot, a single car sat under flickering streetlights. Frost had begun to creep across the windshield, blurring the view inside. A young woman was slumped in the driver's seat. Her winter coat was still on, her seatbelt loosely across her chest, and in the back seat, neatly wrapped Christmas gifts, untouched. But one detail immediately stood out: a single gunshot wound to the head. No broken windows, no forced entry, no signs of struggle, and most chilling of all, no witnesses. For nearly 40 years, the question remained the same: who killed Michelle Martinko? To understand this case, we have to rewind. Michelle Martinko was born in 1960 and raised in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She grew up in a stable or loving household where her parents emphasized responsibility, kindness, and discipline. From an early age, Michelle stood out, not because she was loud or attention-seeking, but because she was steady, reliable, the kind of person people trusted without thinking twice. By 1979, she was 18 years old and a senior at Kennedy High School. She was on the edge of adulthood, preparing for graduation and planning her next steps. College was in her future. Her life was just beginning. Friends described Michelle as warm and approachable. She wasn't involved in drama. She wasn't known for conflict. She maintained friendships that were genuine and long-lasting. She was also deeply connected to her family. Her parents kept a close but trusting relationship with her. She checked in regularly. She followed through on her plans. She respected the boundaries her family set. At home, everything felt safe, predictable. On the surface, Michelle Martinko was living an ordinary life, one filled with small routines, school events, and holiday preparations. But December 1979 would introduce something that didn't belong in that world. At first glance, investigators had no clear suspect, no enemies, no history of threats, no signs that Michelle was involved in anything dangerous. Her life appeared clean, too clean. So the investigation started with a fundamental question: how does someone commit a crime like this without being noticed? There were no signs of a struggle, no screams reported, no forced entry into the vehicle. That suggested something critical. Either Michelle knew the person, or the attacker approached in a way that didn't raise alarm. However, something felt off about the randomness of the crime. This didn't resemble a robbery. Nothing was stolen, no valuables were taken. That removed one of the most common motives. So what remained? A personal grudge, a targeted attack, or something far more unpredictable? The absence of motive made the case even more complex, because without a motive, there was no direction. December 19th, 1979. The evening began like any other. Around 8:30 p.m., Michelle finished her shopping at Westdale Mall. She had purchased Christmas gifts and was preparing to head home. She walked alone toward the parking lot. Cold air, dim lights, holiday traffic slowly thinning out. Witnesses later confirmed seeing her, which she reached her car and got inside. At approximately 9 p.m., she was seated in the driver's seat, engine off, doors closed. And then something happened. There were two possible scenarios. Either someone approached her vehicle and initiated contact, or she allowed the interaction. There was no struggle, no signs of panic, which means whatever happened quickly and quietly. A single gunshot rang out. Close range, precise, instant. The attacker left immediately. No stolen items, no witnesses stepping forward in the moment. Michelle remained inside the vehicle until she was discovered, and just like that, her life ended. At approximately 9:30 p.m., Michelle's family realized she had not returned home. Her father went looking for her. He drove to Westdale Mall. He checked the parking area, and then he found her car. Inside, Michelle, unresponsive. Police and emergency responders arrived shortly after. The scene was secured. Investigators began documenting everything: position of the body, vehicle condition, ballistic evidence, the lack of forced entry. Everything pointed to a very controlled situation. At first glance, this appeared to be a random act of violence, but experienced investigators knew to be cautious, because random crimes often leave more traces. This one did not. They began gathering evidence, physical samples, witness accounts, and forensic data, but early leads quickly stalled. Witnesses didn't report seeing anything unusual. There was no clear suspect. The case went cold. Months turned into years, and years turned into decades. However, something important was preserved: DNA evidence. In 1979, DNA testing wasn't advanced enough to identify a suspect, but the evidence collected from the scene was stored, carefully preserved, waiting for future technology. And that's where the breakthrough happened. In the 2000s, investigators reopened the case. They used modern DNA analysis. The result? A genetic profile of the suspect. But there was still no match in criminal databases, so they turned to a new investigative method, genetic genealogy. This technique compares DNA with public ancestry databases to identify relatives. From there, investigators build family trees. They trace connections, step by step, person by person, until they narrow down a suspect, and eventually they found one, Jerry Lynn Burns. He lived in Cedar Rapids in 1979. He matched the geographic and age profile. But most importantly, his DNA closely matched the crime scene evidence. To confirm the connection, investigators collected a discarded item associated with Burns, a straw. That sample was tested, and the results matched. The DNA from the straw was consistent with the DNA from Michelle's car. After nearly 40 years, the case finally had a suspect. At first, it seemed like the case was resolved. A suspect identified, DNA confirmed, but then came a disturbing realization. There was no known connection between Burns and Michelle. No relationship, no shared history, nothing to suggest motive. This wasn't targeted. This wasn't planned around a specific individual. It appeared random. However, something else became clear during the investigation. Burns had been in the area that night, and which meant Michelle may have been chosen simply because she was there, at the wrong place, at the wrong time. And that realization made the case even more unsettling because it removed any illusion of safety, trial, and verdict. In December 2018, Jerry Lynn Burns was arrested. He was charged with first-degree murder. The trial began in 2020. Prosecutors built their case around DNA evidence. They explained the process of genetic genealogy. They showed how the suspect was identified. They demonstrated the match between Burns' DNA and the crime scene. The defense challenged the reliability of the technology. They questioned whether ancestry-based identification could be trusted alone, but the evidence remained consistent and strong. The jury considered the facts carefully. In February 2020, the verdict was delivered. Guilty. And Burns was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. After nearly 40 years, Michelle's family finally received justice. Aftermath and update today. Jerry Lynn Burns remains in prison. The case of Michelle Martinko is no longer unsolved, but its emotional impact continues. Her family lived with uncertainty for decades, waiting for answers, waiting for justice. And in the end, technology helped uncover the truth, but the loss remained unchanged. However, one question still remains. How many other cases are still waiting for the same breakthrough? This case proves that no matter how much time passes, the truth can still be uncovered. If you found this story compelling, like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And stay tuned, because the next case may reveal another story hidden in time.